So we're talking today about the face of freedom. I chose this talk title about 4 months ago. Thank you, Reverend Monica, for creating a theme in which it would fit. As I so often did not regard what anyone else wished to say when I wrote my themes for all these many years. So, it's kind of hard to create a last talk. You kind of want to throw the kitchen sink into it. Freedom is something that each one of us is very well aware of. If it's not foremost on our mind or on the tip of our tongue, it surely has to be at the gateway to our soul. So let's get right to it. Since you know I'm about just digging in and staying there, I'm going to begin with a quote from Adyashanti. Enlightenment is a destructive process. It has nothing to do with becoming better or being happier. Enlightenment is the crumbling away of untruth. It's seeing through the facade of pretense. It's the complete eradication of everything we have ever imagined to be true. I like to use another word. It's called annihilation. It's a strong word with a very deep and profound meaning. And so I brought a friend along with me who has something else to say about that.
Oh, soul of me, oh, I'm melting, I'm melting.
Annihilation. But you know, something always gets in the way. What gets in the way is we're too attached to lies. You know, finding and acting the clown within is pretty scary in and of itself. So instead we have this epiphany that by the thinking ways of the clown, we just want to hold on to those illusions and become enlightened at the same time. Well, that's just not possible. There are hundreds of ne'er-do-well gurus and spiritual teachers out there that will tell you it is. I'm not one of them. You know, you have been offered many times processes in which to become happy, fulfilled, calm, to find your soulmate, to find your purpose, to be positive, to get the right job, to make lots of money, to balance your chakras, to become healthy, or whatever else you may be desiring. Have you not? This has nothing to do with awakening. It's only polishing the ego. They all lead you to right back to the matrix, however, that you can be sure. You know, we may even be lucky enough to get a golden cage, but it's still a cage. And we remain imprisoned in our own not-so-splendored slavery. However, this is the road that many people choose to follow because it's well-traveled by the herd. We are not that. I'm sure you've all had your own movement, your own remembrances of connection with divinity or divine connection. A couple of weeks ago I was meditating. Sometimes it comes in large waves, this divine connection. Sometimes you search and seek and you be still and you do everything you possibly can, and it never comes until you're looking another way. But a couple of weeks ago when I was meditating, I went quite deep and I was into this feeling of this flowing of the river of life to the very depths of my being. And when I got there, I just felt very empty. Now, normally when I feel empty, I get a little scared because I feel lonely. I don't know if those two words attach together for you, but most of my life I was doing everything I could to escape loneliness. And as I stepped onto the spiritual path, I had this strange inkling that I would have to get over that. And I traded loneliness for emptiness. Actually, that's where I'm headed now. But in this empty feeling, at the depths of my being, I remembered feeling this powerful divine love. It kind of inundated me. It came up, it rose up in my body, and it washed over me at the same time. And I remember thinking this one word, unconditional, and I know we've heard that forever. But I felt it. I thought it, but I felt it inside of me. And I remember at that moment, my mind went crazy, my imagination went crazy, and I saw this unconditional love spreading everywhere. So like bugs, leaves, trees, birds, four-legged fish, everything. And I'm trying to grab my imagination back, because I'm thinking you're getting off track here in meditation. Lord help us, we are always trying to control things. But the point I'm trying to say is I couldn't get where I left off and all of these other beings and energies began. We were so intrinsically connected with this love together. And yet, here's the thing, and yet my individual self remained. Because I knew I wasn't the bugs or the birds or the trees or the people or the grass. I knew that. But the connection was so deep, I knew they were a part of me. So there was simultaneously separation and no separation. I'm sure you felt this. It's not an easy thing to describe in words. But this is, to me, what divine love is. And there's nothing like this love in the world. When one, like each one of us, decides to take the road to the self, we realize we are alone on that road. The herd is going in the opposite direction. And we've got to be prepared for that. We need to find comfort in being alone and being not understood by others. I think this kind of awakening is by grace alone. Grace is within us. Grace is ourself. It's not something that we can surely acquire from others. And if it is external, I think it's rather useless. All that is necessary for us to know is that it is the existence within us. Today's talk wouldn't be a talk if I didn't quote from Ernest Holmes, our founder. So I went through the internet, because my books are packed, and I found a talk that he gave in 1937 on July 4th at the Wiltern Theater. And this is how he began. He said, ever since the dawn of civilization, ever since the first humans began to grasp the significant fact that they were individual beings in a universe that seemed to be more or less hostile to them, the entire search of the human mind, its whole endeavor, has been to get free from evil, from bondage, and the shackles of lack, want, fear, superstition, uncertainty, pain, disease, poverty, and fear of the hereafter. And because of this, human systems exist. Organized philosophies, they spring up, science develops, education systems are conducted, collective security is sought after, and religions are formulated to allay the fear of humankind relative to the soul. The great demand in the world today, 1937, is for a sense of security, freedom, and liberty. We must be very certain that we do not swap one image of bondage for another. We might say, Dr. Holmes says, that the world suffered darkness until somebody discovered electricity. It suffered crawling around on the face of the earth until technology was developed so we could fly and drive. It suffers limitation not because The infinite imposes limitation. But because the world does not understand its freedom, and when it begins to develop its freedom, seldom does it do it directly, because it generally creates a new bondage. Now, some of us would like to portray spiritual freedom as only a call to give up something. But it's more of a call to gain something greater. That's from C.S. Lewis. A small analogy to look at our spiritual blindness, because when we get on this spiritual path, we can also remain blind. To a small child's fixation with his sandbox. When his parents remove a child from the sandbox for a vacation at the beach, he may kick, scream, and cry initially, but all this ceases at the first sight of the beach. Sand dunes and vast ocean horizons. Suddenly the sandbox isn't so appealing. But the problem isn't that we're seeking too much pleasure. We settle for too little. We're so infatuated with our life of little mud pies in the sandbox that we often can't see the vast oceans and continents God would have us explore. King David wrote, "You will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore." But we're also very busy to feel joy, to live in joy, to be the joy we seek. Holmes continues as he powerfully says, man does not exist for the purpose of making an impression upon his environment. Listen to this. He does exist to express himself in and through his environment. There is a great difference here. Man does not exist to leave a lasting impression upon his environment, not at all. It is not necessary that we leave any impression. It is not necessary, if we should pass on tonight, that anyone should remember that we have ever lived. All that means anything is that while we live, we live. That is my favorite quote from Holmes. When I went through ministerial school, that is what lifted me up. That is what kept me going. And that is what started this journey of sacred self, the enlightenment, peace. This peace of peeling away and letting it fall, of being annihilated. Because I knew I was living as I was experiencing annihilation. You know and I know that the higher self will always find a way to awaken us. Will find a way to express itself. Because it has only one agenda, and that agenda is growth. And sometimes, not only do we get busy, but we live from a level of managing sensual pleasures, instead of from the desire to grow. Not that that's bad. Maybe Louis should do a little piece on that right now. It would be wise of me to listen deeply to the guidance. It would be wise of you to listen deeply to your guidance. And slow down to the speed of grace. Slow down to the speed of grace. Sit in your own energy field. Feel what that feels like. Be where that is. Because when we are present, we know what to do and what not to do, which is mostly elusive. And that kind of clarity is priceless. Following the growth principle instead of the sensual pleasantries in life is a very scary thing for the personality self. So today we get to be reminded of the face of freedom that we all wear. And to punctuate that, I am going to invite Prashant up to sing his Song of Freedom.
Yay!
know. Say, take it back. Take it back, take it back, take it back. Take it back, take it back, take it back. Freedom, freedom from war. Freedom, freedom from hate. Freedom, freedom to love. Freedom, freedom can't wait. Freedom, freedom from war. Freedom, freedom from hate. Yeah. Freedom, freedom to love. Freedom, freedom can't wait. Freedom, 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 freedom. Yeah. Freedom, 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 freedom. Yeah, 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 yeah. Freedom, 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 freedom. Oh, yeah, yeah. Freedom, freedom, everybody now.
Freedom, 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 freedom.
One more time.
Freedom, 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 freedom.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Freedom, 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 freedom.
Freedom, 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 freedom.
In Science of Mind, we talk about, keep us on track, the principles, universal natural laws, and something very dear to our hearts, which is called the creative process. This is whereby the unmanifest reality moves into manifest reality, which means the unformed becomes the formed. The infinite becomes the particular. How? How?
Thought, I guess.
By means of our own thought, because all thought is creative. Right? However, what is our job as human beings?
To express the spirit within.
So our job in mind and in body is to take what is manifest and move it into the unmanifest. Because moving the unmanifest into manifest, which is what we're all up to, because we like to see the result, is limited. But moving the manifest, which means who we are, right here, right now, how we identify ourselves, what we have created in our life, what we're thinking about creating. These are all things that are in the particular, in the form. They are things that are in, even if they're experiences, they're individual experiences that are identified by our own perception. So when we can take this and we can crack it open and annihilate that idea of who we are in our limitation, this is enlightenment. This is the divine connection. This is peace. This is wholeness. This is fulfillment. Yoga means connection. Connecting that which is manifest with that which is unmanifest. So one of the things that I like to do, and that actually clowning taught me years ago, was this. I had a lot of emotion, a a lot of unresolved emotion and messy thoughts going on when I became a clown. And when I put the nose on in the costume, I realized that I had a job, and the job was to make people smile, to make them feel good. The problem was, I wasn't feeling so good. How was I to do that? Now, was the costume going to do it? Was the red nose going to do it? Were my words or what I said, was that going to do it? And I realized after trying many different things, it was never that I had to not feel the way I was feeling while I was clowning. It was always that I had to go clearly to the center of how I was truly and authentically feeling. And yet, at the same time, be where the other was. This is like that divine connection in my meditation. To be separate, yet not separate. And so I share that with you because we often think on the spiritual path we have to be a certain way to either be spiritual. We do not. We do not. If it's one thing you take away from this talk today, it is just be authentically intimate with yourself. Even my clown knew 25 years ago, when I wasn't consciously on a spiritual path, I was just trying to survive and get through the next day. Even my clown knew. Ruthie, Brenda, right? My clown buddies back there, right? In order to know my divinity, I must embrace my humanity. So really, I did start on this journey 25, 30 years ago. It wasn't when I stepped here. So the face of freedom knows that one in God is a majority. It knows that 1 + 1 = 1. It's a perfect unison. And a perfect unison carries with it the experience of deconstruction, of annihilation. A whole galaxy will collapse into itself and become nothingness. The most beautiful uniting is a creating, a unison between that which is with that which is not. That which is limited with that which is unlimited. This is our path. This is the path of growth. This is what Holmes said. We will grow and expand beyond all that has gone before. I am not religious science, you are. This teaching is open at the top. That's life. That is your life. So ours to do is expand our love consciously through the law of our being. True freedom, true liberty has something cosmic behind it, Holmes said. If the time has come that modern science has proved that we cannot move a piece of paper without changing the balance of the entire physical universe, if we have come to the place where we know that the stuff of which our physical bodies are made is the same stuff of which the planets are made, if we have come to the place where such a profound unity is maintained, that physicists believe there is no such thing as disunity in this physical world, then we can easily see what the great spiritual leaders of the ages meant when they told us of that greater unity in which we all live, move, and have our being. And that the idea of freedom itself is tied up with the true concept of the unity of good. If our nature is one, if God is one, and we know that God must be one, for the universe cannot be divided against itself, then we are all tied into this indivisible unity. And make no mistake, we shall have to get back to this unity to find the meaning of freedom. So we're here to do an about face for the rest of our lives. Loving from the self that God made each of us uniquely as. And as we do that, we move to seek out answers to 1,000,000 questions with attachments to each outcome we move from that place to naturally, in our curious and awe-filled minds, ask a million questions with no attachment to any one answer. The face of freedom is embracing my humanity. It is today as it was 30 years ago, as it always was. When I didn't know it, and now when I do know it. As it is here, I realize my divinity. I close with a poem by Jane Hirschfield. You work with what you are given. The red clay of grief, the black clay of stubbornness, going on after. Clay that tastes of care or carelessness, clay that smells of the bottoms of rivers or dust. Each thought is a life you have lived or failed to live. Each word is a dish you have eaten or left on the table. There are honeys so bitter, no one would be willing to choose to take them. The clay takes them. Honeys of weariness, honeys of vanity, honey of cruelty and fear. This rebus, slip and stubbornness, bottom of river, my own consumed life, when will I learn to read it plainly, slowly, uncolored by hope or desire? Not to understand it, only to see it. As water given sugar sweetens, given salt grows salty, we become our choices. Each yes, each no continues. This one a ladder, that one an anvil or cup. The ladder leans into its darkness. The anvil leans into its silence. The cup sits empty. How can I enter this question the clay has asked? Our journey of truth, of who we are, is a journey without distance, whose goal has never changed. It's freedom. Be free now. I am, and so it is.